Is Superman boring? A debate that's existed for a long time now, and one that just got reignited with the release of The Boys Season 3. Is the evil Superman trope more interesting than when Superman is just a good guy? What's so enticing about Homelander, and why are we so bored of Superman? Well, let's break this down. The most common response you'll get when you say Superman is boring is, you haven't read the comics, or tell me you haven't read the comics without telling me you haven't read the comics. And yeah, I haven't read the comics, okay? But today I'm going to be looking at Superman in the medium of film, and whether or not that character works there, because there have been a lot of Superman projects brought to the screen, whether big or small, and at least one of them has to be interesting, right? Let's go over the main critiques that the Superman is boring camp has. 1, that he pretty much can't die, and 2, he only has one weakness, so of course a majority of his villains are going to use that weakness against him. When there's no tension and physical conflict, the tension has to come from philosophical conflict, or moral conflict, or interpersonal conflict. And the problem is that many of these Superman movies and shows don't really have those things. Let's start with the most recent iteration of Superman. And before we begin, just a side note that I'm only judging these movies based on how interesting I found the character of Superman / Clark Kent / Kal-El. Everything else about the movie I'm not talking about, I'm not judging today. That's separate in video entirely. Okay, let's begin. Man of Steel by Zack Snyder. Let's talk about it. So basically, Zod comes down to Earth and he's like, hey, I want to recreate Krypton on Earth, and Superman, you have all the Kryptonian genetics inside you, so we can use you to recreate Krypton, but first we're going to have to kill all the humans. Superman's like, no, I don't want to kill all the humans because I was born and raised with these humans. I literally just met you. You're the only Kryptonian I know, so why am I going to prioritize you over these humans? Okay, and then they fight. Cool. The only real moral dilemma that's going on here is Superman's moral code about how he doesn't kill people, and then he kills Zod at the end. But that's not really expanded upon in the first 2 acts, to where it's never established that he has this moral code. It's just up to us as the audience to assume, hey, it's Superman, he doesn't kill people. And then by the time he kills Zod, we're like, oh no, he killed someone, and he feels bad about it. I just wish that this was a theme throughout the whole movie instead of something that just kind of happens in the 3rd act and then we feel bad. There really is no internal conflict within Superman in the first 2 acts. He just does good things because he's a good person. His parents raised him to be good, and he does good things. And this is why a lot of people find him boring, because his goodness is never challenged in a way. He just does good, and you'll know he'll always be good. But there is this one scene that made me like raise an eyebrow. It's at this truck stop when this trucker is being really rude and sexist to the waitress, and then Clark is like, hey man, cut that out, that's not cool. And then the trucker's like, oh, you want to go, bro? And then the trucker wants to fight Clark. But Clark is the bigger man because he knows he'll beat this man in a fight. And he goes, no, I don't want to fight you. I'm going to walk away now. And so Clark walks away. And then we're like, cool, that's Superman's moral code. He doesn't fight civilians because that's not the kind of guy he is. But then later, when the trucker walks out of the truck stop, he finds his truck just like impaled by logs. Like, why did Clark do that? That's kind of a mean thing to do. That's something I wouldn't assume Superman does. Is this problem going to be addressed that he's kind of mean to people? No, it's just a one-off thing that I think is for, like, maybe jokes, or maybe kind of, whoa, look at how cool Superman is. He really showed that guy by destroying his personal property. That's no better than picking a fight with him. Is just destroying his truck behind his back. I wish that got addressed and he learns to be a good person and how to use his powers for good. But instead, this is just a one-off thing that happens and you're like, okay, I guess he's good for the rest of the movie now. And of course, in every Superman story, there has to be a love interest, primarily Lois Lane. Lois in this movie is alright, I think. Compared to the other movies, their relationship seems a bit rushed, but I don't really mind that, and we'll get to that part when I talk about the other movies. But I get it. They want to make them have a relationship as fast as possible so we can get to the interesting relationship dynamics that come with it. And to be honest, I'm pretty fine with that. Amy Adams does a good job, and there's not too much to say here about this. I will say what I like most about the Zack Snyder Superman films is that I like the action a little bit more than the other films, be it just the new CGI technology, or that Superman, the one way to make him interesting and stand out from all the other superheroes is his physical power. Like, he can fight on a scale that no other superhero can fight on, so might as well take advantage of that. Use him to crash into buildings, explode things, go up into space, throw the other person back down. Like, that's interesting to watch, and not every superhero can do that. Now, I'm not saying every superhero has to cause a certain amount of property damage to be deemed interesting. Just look at Ant-Man. Like, his fight scenes are cool because they focus on his specific power and utilize it to a specific way that he can fight in a way that only he can do. Now, do that same thing with Superman. Of course, it isn't really totally brought out in these Snyder films, as mostly he's just being thrown into buildings and there's big explosions. But the third act, where the spaceships are like pulsating into the earth, that's cool, and that's a problem that not every superhero can solve, and only Superman can really deal with this. So I liked that aspect of it, and the action was pretty good. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I made the mistake of watching the Ultimate Edition that is 3 hours long, and yeah, out of those 3 hours, there was not a lot of Superman content, as it is balancing introducing Batman, introducing Wonder Woman, introducing the Justice League, introducing that this future of where Superman is evil, introducing Doomsday, introducing Lex Luthor, and then Lois has to go around finding out where this bullet came from, and that's like half of the movie. And so yeah, there's not a lot of Superman screen time, but what is there is a decent start, let's say. I like the moral question of, should Superman be seen as a god? Should he be praised as a god? Should he just be treated like a regular human being? Does he need to follow the rules and regulations of America and the laws? Is he above the law? That's interesting conflict. Yes, we have seen it before, primarily in another superhero movie that came out in the same year about whether or not superheroes should be within the law. But yeah, it's at least an interesting moral question that can be explored. And I liked the very brief ideological conflict between Clark and Bruce and whether or not Batman is above the law, because Batman brands his villains, and then when the villains go to jail, that's basically when you're branded with that bat symbol, it'll be a death sentence to you because the other prisoners will beat you up and kill you. And so Superman is like, hey, or Clark is like, hey, I don't think Batman should be sentencing people to their deaths all by himself, judge, jury, and executioner. And then Batman is like, hey, but that's pretty cool, right? In a movie titled Batman v Superman, I think the main conflict should come from Superman's idea of what a superhero should be and Batman's idea of what a superhero should be, and their definitions of justice, and those two ideas clashing each other. But instead, there was so many other things going on, and there has to be Doomsday, and there has to be the death of Superman, that those never get fully explored, and I wish that would have been the main movie. I really liked the third act action scene against Doomsday. I thought the fight choreography was pretty good, and they utilized his powers in a cool way. And with Lois, she's pretty much doing her own side quest the entire movie, and so she doesn't interact with Clark that much, except for their one bathtub scene. And then, yeah, Superman just dies at the end. And so that's why I'm not going to talk about Justice League in this video, either version, just because Superman is dead for a majority of it. And then by the time he comes back, it's just in time to fight the big bad, and there isn't much character stuff to go on. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Snyder films. The action is fairly decent, but the characterization and moral conflict aren't really there for me. Alright, it's time to talk about the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. There's four of them, and then there's like a fifth one where they recast everybody in 2006. So let's start at the beginning with the Superman from 1978. His origin story is pretty much the same as always. Krypton explodes, his parents send him into space, he crash lands on the farm, parents find him, but then the one thing that didn't really sit with me well is that his dad just randomly dies. Like it adds nothing to his character. Like his dad, like his Earth dad, just randomly falls over and dies one day, and that really doesn't motivate him to be a better person or do good in the world. It's just his dad dies. And like I get it, people kind of praise Superman for like not having a tragic backstory and he's just inherently good. But I think this might, like, if a character's gonna die, might as well make it worth something, right? Instead of just his dad being dead because his dad is dead in the comics or something. Like, I don't know, that didn't really sit well with me. But on positive notes, the character of Clark Kent is so funny, is so entertaining, because Clark is now a goof, he's a klutz, he's stumbling all over the place, he doesn't know how to use a revolving door, he's awkward in conversation, he's a pushover at work, he's funny. And while Superman, he's calm, cool, collected, and slick, and confident. Which, while I was watching, I questioned, is the Clark persona a performance? Or is he actually this awkward when he's not Superman? Because he feels his most confident and most himself when he is Superman. And that can create an interesting internal conflict between him, is that he enjoys being the character and persona of Superman so much more because that's who he actually is, and he has to put on an act every time he's Clark that he doesn't want to be Clark anymore. But of course that doesn't get explored at all because apparently this man has been to years of therapy and knows how to deal with all of his emotions, and there's no problem of being these two people at the same time, and it's just fine, and he balances the two lives perfectly. And the main bad guy is Lex Luthor yet again, and his plan involves sending two nukes to the west and east coast of the United States, and it's up to Superman to choose which one he's going to save, and of course there's kryptonite involved, and this conflict really just challenges him physically instead of morally, because yeah, does he have the physical strength to save both nukes? And of course it ends with the big meme of him flying around the earth to reverse its rotation to go back in time because Lois dies, but he wants to go back in time to save Lois. And that's a little bit of a moral conflict, is that his Kryptonian dad, Jor-El, is like, hey, don't interfere with human history. But then Superman just does it anyway without questioning what his dad said to him, and then it all works out in the end with no consequence. So yeah, that's not much of an internal conflict. And then yeah, really this movie just challenges him strength-wise. And then with Lois, it really is just kind of a slow burn throughout the entire movie because they don't end up together at the end. Clark and Lois are just good co-workers, and Lois has her relationship with Superman where she kind of has a crush on him, but that's never really expanded upon, and it's really comes to a good conclusion in Superman 2. So let's talk about Superman 2. Superman 2, out of all the Christopher Reeve movies, I think has the best internal conflict of Superman. Even though there isn't really too much there, it's still better than all the other movies. So basically, Lois figures out that Clark is Superman, and then she tries to confirm it by like putting herself in danger, and then Clark still saves her somehow without using his powers. And then, well, he does use his powers, but in a way that Lois doesn't notice. And then he saves her, and then that sequence is fun, but then he reveals to her anyway that, yeah, I am Superman, and then they fall in love with each other, and it's a great moment. And then they start their relationship, and then you're like, gee, I wonder how Superman is going to balance this relationship with being a superhero. So he goes to the Fortress of Solitude, where his dad, Jor-El, is like, hey, if you fall in love with a human woman, you must get rid of your powers because it'll never work. Okay, you have to be a human in order to fall in love with a human because being a superhero while being in love just isn't going to work. It's going to be too messy. You got to get rid of your powers. And so, boom, we've set up this great moral dilemma. Does Superman choose his love or his love of saving people and helping people? And think of all the people who will not be saved if he chooses Lois. Nope, he immediately chooses Lois in that moment. Barely thinking on it for a few seconds. He's like, I know my decision. I'm going to be with Lois. Take away my powers, Dad. Even though you said I cannot get them back, I am ready to commit to Lois after. Like, he doesn't think about it. He just chooses Lois. So he doesn't have that conflict within him because he already knows his answer. And then there's a short sequence where he doesn't have his powers, and that's sort of fun to see that aspect of him without his powers and how he has to adjust to the everyday life. But that's kind of cut short when Zod comes and he's like, hey, I'm evil, I'm gonna start doing whatever. And then Superman's like, okay, let me go get my powers back. But he gets his powers back off screen, and it's never explained how he gets his powers back because Jor-El says, hey, you cannot get your powers back once I take them away. But he just does for whatever reason. And then he leads Zod and all the other Kryptonians, evil people, to the Fortress of Solitude, where then he uses the takeaway power machine on them, and then they don't have any powers anymore. And the end. So what was an interesting story about Superman and Lois and him having to balance his relationship with his superhero life just turns into I must defeat Zod, and then that's what happens. I'm being really harsh on this. This literally is my favorite movie out of all 5 of them. I have to be clear. Like, this is my favorite. I think it's the best. But still, like, they set up so much good stuff only for it just to be, hey, there's a villain in Act 3, you have to defeat him and use your strength. And it's like, cool, we're doing this again. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to tell you the most important part of the movie that happens at the very end. Clark kisses Lois and that wipes her memory. It's never been established that Superman has the power to wipe someone's memory, but he does. Lois forgets that Clark is Superman, and then Clark is like, I cannot pursue a relationship with her. I'm gonna prioritize being Superman. And then that's what he does. And then there's all that character building just for the memory to be wiped. And now Lois is at square one. His relationship with Lois is back to co-workers. He's back to being Superman. And not much has changed from the beginning of the movie, which kind of sucks. Superman 3. First of all, I just want to say I like how they utilize Superman's powers in basically all the Christopher Reeve movies. They make sure to incorporate his super hearing, his X-ray vision, his frost breath, because usually it's only flying strength and laser eyes that get used in fights. So in this movie, it starts with him, there's a big chemical fire, and so he flies over to a lake, he freezes the lake with his frost breath, grabs the piece of ice, and then uses the ice to put out the fire. That's an interesting way of using his powers besides just punching someone. So good on Superman 3 for doing that. But now I'm gonna have to roast you. So remember, Lois's memory has been wiped, and so now she doesn't know Clark is Superman, and then Clark is like, hey, I'm gonna go off to Smallville for a bit, just cuz. So he goes off to Smallville, his hometown. He meets up with Lana Lang, which is his high school friend, who, like, of course they have a romance in the comics, and she's like the other main love interest of Superman. And so him and Lana hang out, and then at this point I was confused because, may I remind you, I watched Superman 2 and Superman 3 24 hours apart. And in that time, I forgot that Lois's memory has been wiped. So that entire time, I just thought Clark was cheating on Lois with Lana. But then I was like, oh wait, no, she got her memory wiped. So who knows what people were thinking in theaters when they had to wait like years between movies, and they probably forgot that Lois's memory was wiped because it happened so fast within the last seconds of the last movie that so many people probably thought that Clark is out here cheating on Lana. Anyway, oh yeah, and so Clark goes to his high school reunion. That's why he's in Smallville. He goes to the high school reunion, meets up with Lana. Lana's like, oh, I'm sorry about your mom. And so, boom, his mom is just dead. She died in between movies. We don't see it. It's not for character growth or any other reason. She just says, I'm sorry, your mom died. And he's like, it's okay. We don't get to see the funeral, the death, any last words of his mom. She's just dead. The villain this time isn't Lex Luthor, as he was the villain in the first two movies. This time it's just a random rich person who also exposes Superman to kryptonite. But this time the kryptonite doesn't take away his powers, it takes away his morality, I guess. It's very confusing. The way they explain it is basically Lana goes, "Oh no, Superman now has the mind of an average man." And I guess the commentary there is man is inherently greedy, and so now that Superman has the mind of a regular human man, he's gonna do greedy and evil things because man is inherently evil. Which questions, like, was Superman good in the first place because he's Kryptonian? Do Kryptonians just have a better biological sense of goodness and morality? Is that why he's been good this entire time? Not because he actually is good, just because he was born good? And is that because, like, Kryptonians don't live in a capitalist society, but at the same time, Kryptonians lived in a society where politicians didn't listen to scientists about the impending doom of their planet? It raises so many questions. Anyway, how we even see this evil Superman for the first time is that Lana is like, "Superman, help! There's a truck about to fall off a bridge." And then Superman's like, "I know, but can you let me smash first?" And Lana's like, "No, I'm not going to let you smash first. Go save the truck." And then Superman's like, "Are you sure I can't smash first?" And Lana's like, "No, I would love to smash, but after you save the truck, please. Can you go save the truck?" And then Superman's like, "Fine, I guess I'll save the truck." And then Superman goes, he flies over to the bridge. The truck already fell, and then the police officer's like, "Superman, you should have been here 10 seconds ago." And then we never see if anyone dies because of this. It's said that no one is hurt, assumingly, like, we're just assuming that a truck fell off a thing and the person driving the truck is fine. All the civilians are fine, because if the civilians aren't fine, we need, as the audience, need to be made aware of that, so we know the stakes that we're dealing with. But as we know, it's just a truck that falls off a bridge, and then the police officer is like, it's fine. I wish you were here 10 seconds ago, but I guess it's fine. And then that's it. That's how we're introduced to evil Superman, is that he wants to just have sex with Lana, and then she's like, "No, go save this truck instead." And then basically there's another sequence where there's a marathon runner with a torch, and then it's like, "Hey, this torch has been ran cross country, being passed off from person to person for like 4,000 miles. Now it's going to be lit into this bigger torch." And then Superman is just like hiding behind the bleachers and then blows out the torch right before it can ignite the big torch. That's not greedy. He has nothing to gain from that. If you're saying that he's now a regular man and man is greedy, that's not greed. That's just pulling a prank. He's just messing with people for his own, like, does that make him feel good? I'm sure he got a laugh out of it, but like, that's not greed. That's like a practical joke on a national scale. But like, still, that's not greed. He's not causing anyone harm. He just caused mild disappointment with everyone watching. Like, that's not evil. So basically all we know at this point is that evil Superman just pulls pranks and is horny. That's all there is to this evil Superman character. And then eventually this evil Superman has a metaphorical fight with Clark. It's like the persona of Clark is now fighting with the evil Superman in a physical sense, but it's also like a metaphorical sense in this junkyard. It's a pretty cool fight, I guess. It's interesting in concept, but it's done really poorly. And then, of course, Clark wins the fight, and Superman is no longer evil. He's no longer under the spell that the kryptonite put on him, and now he's good again. But guess what? He literally did nothing of consequence when he was evil Superman, that no one cares that he's back to normal. Literally nothing. He does nothing as evil Superman to where people... It should have been like, while he was evil Superman, like he killed someone, or like was the direct cause of someone's death. And now once he's back to normal, he has to deal with that public backlash. But no, he does nothing of consequence while he's evil Superman, to where no one bats an eye when he changes back. Like, literally all he did was try to have sex with women and then blow out a torch. Like, it could have been really interesting because of course now we're seeing in the modern day that there is this kind of sort of demand for an evil Superman character. But no, it's he's just horny. And then at the very end of the movie, Superman goes back to Metropolis, and then Lana comes with him, and then Lana and Lois have a scene together at the very end where you can sense some jealousy between them over them both having feelings for Clark, but then that's not really expanded upon because Lana does not show up ever again. So what could have been at least like on a teenage Riverdale love triangle level, that would have been interesting, a love triangle between Lois, Lana, and Clark. But nope, that doesn't happen. So yeah, Superman 3, kind of a big disappointment. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Yeah, this one's like the meme one out of all of them. It gets memed on for like being really bad. And yeah, I can't say that those people are wrong. So basically the plot this time is that it's the Cold War and people are like, hey Superman, can you get rid of the nukes for us? And then Superman's like, okay, I'll get rid of the nukes for you. And here's where you think the debate begins of like, should Superman intervene in international conflict? Does he have the right to take away another country's nukes, like their nuclear arms, and intervene in their like military? But no, Superman just gets rid of every single nuke on the Earth and everyone is happy. No one is mad that he did that. Everyone's happy, all the nukes are gone, there's no conflict there. Like, okay, I guess that problem solved. There are no more nukes. But guess what? Lex Luthor is rich and he wants to be even more rich. And so he's like, hey, what if I start producing nukes and selling them to the people who want nukes? And then this other guy he's working with is like, I bet. And then so they create this guy named Nuclear Man for whatever reason. And it's just a guy that Superman can fight. And then they have a fight. And then you're like, okay, is this fight gonna get interesting? They're just punching each other. And this is where I got pretty bored. But then something happened to where I was like, okay, this is something only Superman can do, which is he moves the moon out of its orbit to cover up the sun to create an eclipse because Nuclear Man gets his powers from the sun, which is cool because no other superhero can freaking move the moon. Like this is how you can differentiate Superman fight scenes from all the other superhero fight scenes, is move the freaking moon. Of course there's no scientific consequence to this happening, as like if the moon in real life was moved out of its orbit, I'm sure that would create so many problems, but it doesn't. And then he defeats Nuclear Man, and that's about it. I'm gonna check my notes to see if I missed anything. I doubt I did. Oh yeah, I did. I know what I forgot. It's his relationship with Lois. Okay, so basically the Daily Planet gets bought out by this guy and it's under new ownership and their new boss. Her name is Lacey, and Lacey kind of has a crush on Clark. So if you're paying attention, yes, Superman's main love interests are Lois Lane, Lana Lang, and Lacey Warfield. I liked the character of Lacey for the little screen time she got because there is this fun scene where Lacey, Lois, and Clark are all going to do an interview with Superman, but of course Clark and Superman are the same person, so he has to juggle going between back and forth Clark and Superman and being with Lacey and being with Lois, and it's just a fun little gag of like, it's just a thing of like, oh no, I took 2 dates to the prom and I have to go get punched to hang out with the other girl. It's basically that shtick that we've all seen before, but hey, I liked it. It was fun. Then there's a scene where you'd think Lois actually remembers everything about Clark and Superman and that the memory wipe didn't work on her and she's been faking it this whole time. But actually what happened is that Superman temporarily took away the memory wipe. So then Lois remembers that it's like, oh my gosh, Clark is Superman. And then they do the flying scene from the first movie, but this time worse CGI somehow, even if it's like a decade later. And then at the end of the flying scene, Superman just wipes her memory again. So basically for one scene, Lois is like back to regular and she knows Superman's secret, but then it gets taken away immediately after. I think they just wanted to do the flying scene again for like nostalgia's sake. And yeah, the relationship really doesn't work here, and it never gets resolved by the end of the movie. Like, Clark and Lois are still just co-workers. Superman and Lois are just still kind of flirtatious towards each other. There's no relationship, and their relationship peaked in Superman 2. 19 years after Superman 4 and the Quest for Peace, 2006, they make Superman Returns, which is a reboot sequel kind of thing. It's a reboot in the sense that every single character is recast, new actor. It's a sequel in the sense that they're treating this as the fifth movie in the installment. Everything else in the other four movies are canon. It happened. And except for one thing, is that now Superman's mom is still alive, like his Earth mom. She's just alive, and they have a scene together. And it's like, okay, I guess she didn't die, according to that one line of dialogue in Superman 3. She's still alive. I think that's the only thing they really retcon here. That was weird to see, but anyway, let's get into it. The building blocks for an interesting Superman story are here, as Superman leaves Earth for 5 years to go see if Krypton is really gone, because apparently astronomers said there's a chance that Krypton still might be out there. So Superman was like, okay, I need to see this for my own eyes. Superman goes, and he confirms that yes, Krypton is gone, and then by the time he comes back to Earth, 5 years have passed. And in that time, Lois got married to James Marsden, and they had a kid, and Lois finally won her Pulitzer Prize for writing an article about how the world doesn't need Superman. Hey, guess what? That's the interesting moral conflict. You found it. It's whether or not the world actually needs Superman. But are you going to expand upon it? No. What are you going to do instead? Have Lex Luthor come back and do another stupid scheme. Because Superman discovering that the world doesn't need him is kind of a shock, and you'd think like there has to be some internal conflict there. But what Superman does is basically in one night he just goes around fighting as much crime as possible, helping as many people as possible. And while doing this, you're wondering, is he doing this because he wants to prove to Lois that the world does need Superman, or does he feel guilty for being gone for 5 years, and so he's trying to make up for lost time by helping all these people? And that's never really answered. It's just a way for him to be busy while Lex Luthor steals kryptonite, of course, and that's the only reason why that's in the plot, and it's frustrating. Superman has a scene with Lois on the balcony, of course. Lois doesn't know Superman's secret identity, and then Lois has this line, and I quote, "The world doesn't need a savior, and neither do I." Shouldn't that be the main conflict of the movie, is debating whether or not the world needs Superman? Even then, Superman takes Lois flying again, because they want to do the flying scene, but it's actually shot very prettily. I think it's pretty. And then Superman just goes, well, you don't have super hearing, so you can't hear all the people in trouble that I do. And that's the end of that conflict. Never brought up again, because Lex Luthor needs to throw crystals into water so we can create land masses and then sell the land or something. So yeah, Lex Luthor's plan is to use kryptonite crystals from the Fortress of Solitude, throw them in the water, because in water they become giant land masses. And then Superman stops him, but Lex Luthor is like, oh, no, you don't. I infused this crystal with kryptonite. So now the landmass has kryptonite inside of it, so you can't stop me. And then Superman's like, well, I'm going to stop you anyway. And he overpowers the kryptonite, and then he brings the landmass into space. The end. Oh yeah, did I mention that Lois's kid is secretly Superman's kid, and that the kid has powers that he uses once, and it's never brought up again, and James Marsden, who thinks he's the dad, is never brought aware of this fact. Everything is just happily ever after. One can infer that at the end of the movie, Lois whispers something to Superman, and probably she's saying, hey, we had a kid together, even though last time we saw each other in Superman 4, we didn't have sex, but I'm assuming between the time jump between Superman 4 and this movie, we did have sex, to where, yeah, you're a dad now. And yeah, that's the movie. The building blocks were there, but they never expand upon it, just like all the other movies. Let's recap the 7 movies I just talked about. Now, if you've been paying attention, you probably realized that Superman isn't boring because he's too strong. It's not because of his powers. It's because of the villain. He doesn't have a villain that can really test him in a moral area. Like, they don't push him any which way morally. They just test his strength, and of course, since he's Superman, he's gonna come out on top. And if you've been paying attention, you know that 5 out of the 7 movies I talked about had Lex Luthor as the villain, and the other 2 had Zod. Hey, this is me editing, and real quick, I just realized I misspoke. Superman 2 actually has Lex Luthor and Zod both as villains. It's Superman 3 that does not have Lex Luthor or Zod as a villain. And then, of course, Man of Steel has Zod as a villain. And those are the only 2 movies that don't have Lex as a villain. Anyway, back to the video. Does this man not have any other villains to pull from? Oh hey, I just found a list of villains more interesting than Lex Luthor in one Google search, and by clicking on the first result. I know all of you are going to yell at me that yes, Lex Luthor is interesting in the comics, but we're talking about film here, and he's had his shot several times and failed every single time. So here's who I think should be the next live-action Superman villain, and his name is Mr. Mxyzptlk. It's spelled like this. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Mr. Mxyzptlk?
No! Repeat after me, bright boy. It's Mix. Yes. Spit.
But let me read you an excerpt from the article I found in my said Google search. He is an imp from the 5th dimension who has used his chaotic reality warping powers to bedevil and bewilder Superman since very early in the character's 75-year history. Doesn't that sound cool? Like, imagine, like, with all the new CGI nowadays, what can be done with this character, and how he can really challenge Superman by literally warping reality and test him in so many fun, creative ways that don't involve kryptonite or him just punching something. That's cool. That's interesting. All of these movies I just talked about have villains that don't test him. Basically, all of the moral questioning that are in these 7 movies come from Lois. And then he just solves that problem by just, like, it's... I need a villain who can really challenge Superman here, and I think this guy's the one. In the past 7 movies I talked about, Clark really never goes through any emotional turmoil, because either it's because Superman is just good, he does good things, and he's a good person. Or B, apparently he's just been through years of therapy to where anything that might shake him emotionally just doesn't, and he's secure enough in his emotions and his feelings and his relationship towards Lois and everyone else that he knows that he's just fine. Like, he can't be bothered by these silly, petty drama. I will say, taking a step back, that Superman 1 and 2 are fairly strong films. And yes, Man of Steel has its following, and I can see why people like that movie. It's just, for me, the character of Superman is not interesting enough in any of these films. I need a villain that can morally test Superman, and one that is preferably not Lex Luthor. Well, I found one, in the DCAU, the DC Animated Universe. Let's talk about it. Superman vs. the Elite is an hour and 16-minute animated film where the plot is people are now upset that Superman isn't killing his villains. People think that the villains that he's going up against deserve to die because they've killed a bunch of people. They're either like terrorists or serial killers, and these people deserve to die. Why are these villains getting sent to prison where they can have 3 meals a day? Like, they don't deserve that. But Superman's like, I'm not gonna kill anybody. It's not my job to be judge, jury, and executioner solely on me. But then there's this new superhero team that comes out of nowhere called the Elite. And the Elite show up, and then they're like, hey, we're gonna kill anyone who is a bad guy, don't worry. We're here to save you all. We're here just to rid the world of all of its trash. And the public is like, yeah, finally, like someone who can like kill the bad people. And then Superman is like, wait, guys, don't kill people. Like, that's not the way to do things. They're like, you have to work within the rules or else you'll become one of these bad guys that you kill. But then they're like, no, we only kill bad guys. We're the good guys. Don't worry about it, Superman. And that is the moral conflict, whether or not you should kill a bad person, whether or not a bad person deserves to die, whether or not it's up to one person individually to decide whether or not someone should live or die. That's an interesting moral conflict that morally tests Superman, because Superman now thinks the only way to get rid of the elite is to kill them, because the elite are going to kill him if he comes after the elite. So, like, that's an interesting conflict and people that morally challenge Superman. Oh, and did I mention Lois Lane is there? She already knows about Superman's identity and his secret. They're in love. It's great. Whatever. We skipped past all the, like, drama. Like, we're already in it. We're already in it. Great. I love it. There's the leader of the elite, this guy who I'm forgetting his name right now, but basically Superman is able to defeat him by pretending that he killed the rest of the elite. He killed all of this guy's teammates, and then this guy's like, Superman, what are you doing? You don't kill. This isn't you. And then Superman's like, it was all a joke, bro. I pranked you. See how scary it is to live in fear when other people are in charge of your destiny, whether or not you should live or die. This is why you need to go through all the rules and regulations, because that's how like justice is served. Justice isn't served by one person. You have to, there has to be a consensus on whether or not, like, and it's a whole big death penalty metaphor, and Superman uses a creative way to stop the villain rather than just punching his way out of it. And this is a very good animated film. It's very brief and short, and so there's not much filler. It gets straight to the point, and I liked it. Superman's main comparison right now is Homelander. Homelander is a character in a TV show, The Boys, who has had now 3 seasons to develop his character and change over time. So what about Superman? He's had his fair share of TV shows, and the TV medium is better for developing a character more thoroughly over time and really getting to know someone. So let's take a look at some of these Superman TV shows to see if they do him, if they paint Superman in an interesting light. To be clear, I have not seen any of these TV shows in their entirety. That would just take way too long, and I wanted to get the video up fast while this debate was still kind of relevant, and while The Boys Season 3 is still sort of relevant. So yeah, I'll discuss further on what sort of episodes I did watch, but yeah, just to be clear, I have not seen the entirety of any of these TV shows, and if you have, feel free to let me know your opinions of them in the comments. Superman, the animated series. Okay, to be honest, I only watched the first 5 episodes, and the first episode doesn't even have Superman in it because it's about the death of Krypton and Superman's dad, and I don't have a lot to go off of watching this. But here's what I did find out. The character of Superman in the show I found very cool, very calm, collected, quippy, just like Christopher Reeve's Superman. I liked the persona of Superman. Of course, the series is setting up Lex Luthor as a big villain, but whatever, I didn't get to those episodes, so I'm fine. And I think this medium is best for like a villain of the week sort of thing that showcase off all of Superman's fun villains, fun cartoonish villains, because it is an animated cartoon that's targeted mainly towards kids. So yeah, they can be more fun, more silly with it. They don't have to be in this grounded universe. And I think this is what the show is best at, is featuring its fun villains. I liked the Toymaker episode because that's a villain you'll probably never see in live action. And I thought with the animated medium, it's a great use of the Toymaker because he's fun and silly and uses these toys to like cause mischief. There's even an episode with Mr. Mixie Espitlick, which I haven't seen, but that's cool that they included him because he's an interesting character and we deserve to see more of these villains besides Lex Luthor. I don't know if this show really goes deep into Clark's psyche and really psychoanalyzes him as a character. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't, then I think it works fine as a villain of the week superhero show where you just get to see Superman beat up all these different kinds of villains, these villains you wouldn't see on a big screen. So for that reason, I liked it. Smallville. I originally wasn't going to talk about this show because it's more about Clark's origin story and he really isn't Superman yet. And I wanted to focus on stories that did include like actual Superman doing Superman things. But as I got into my research about this show, it's like, yeah, Clark still fights all these traditional Superman villains and he teams up with other superheroes. The only thing that's missing is really the suit and the name Superman, so I thought might as well just throw it in here. With 10 seasons, this show really has a cult following, and I'm sad to report that I only watched one episode because the Superman burnout really hit me by the time I got around to watching this. I was just so tired of anything Superman related. I was just so over it. So I just went on IMDb and found the highest rated episode and watched that, along with numerous video essays about Smallville made by fans of Smallville. So if you want to watch any of the videos I watched about it, I'll link them in the description. And that's where I'm getting my information from. I watched season 5, episode 12, called Reckoning. In this episode, basically Clark is in love with Lana, and he wants to tell his secret to Lana that he is Superman. So he does. He reveals to Lana that he is Superman, and then immediately after proposes to her. Lana says yes, but later that night, she gets in a car accident and dies. So Clark is like, oh no, the love of my life. So he goes to the Fortress of Solitude and is like, hey yo, Pops, is there any way to undo this? And then Jor-El is like, hey, we do have this one crystal that you could use to go back in time, but you can only use it once. And if you do, the universe is going to balance itself out in some way, so be careful. And then Clark is like, it's worth it. And so Clark thinks that Lana's death is directly tied into the fact that he revealed himself to be Superman and proposed to her. So he goes back in time and he does not do that. He kind of like he acts weird around Lana to a point where Lana's like, okay, what are we anymore? I might want to take a break from us. But then, yeah, that's sad that they're kind of taking a break right now, but Clark is like, okay, at least she's still alive. And then later in the episode, it's his dad who dies instead of Lana, and that's the universe's way of balancing things out. And so, yeah, his dad is now dead and everyone's sad, but then his mom is like, Clark explains everything that went on to his mom, and then his mom's like, okay, I understand. It's like, your son just, in a way, killed your husband. Like, are you going to be at least a little bit mad? And then the mom is like, it was kind of his time anyway. It's like, what? Anyway, I'm sure in the context of the grander show, this is makes a lot of sense. I know I'm making fun of it a little, but I actually did enjoy this episode. And it's an interesting moral conflict of Clark having to choose to save Lana and go back in time to where he knows something might be able to change. But just like Superman 2, he immediately chooses the love of his life over anything else that could happen. And he's sort of blinded by that love, and that really isn't a moral conflict he has to think over. He's like, yes, I will do anything to save Lana. And then he realizes, oh, in order to save Lana, my dad had to die. And now I don't even get the choice to go back again, because now this is just the way things are. So, yeah. In a show that's focusing on Clark pre-Superman era, yeah, it's going to be interesting and flesh out his character a lot over 10 freaking seasons. And of course, there's gotta be Lex Luthor in it. But this time, according to the video essays I watched again, they do his character really well. Apparently Lex is like the best thing about this show, and the actor who plays him is like the best actor in the show, and then when the actor leaves, the show goes downhill, and the show is just primarily about Clark and Lex's relationship as friends, and then growing apart. As you know, they'll become enemies in the future. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, even though it's Lex yet again, but Lex with a twist. Superman and Lois. It's the most recent Superman media to hit the TV screen, And again, I was really burnt out on Superman media, so I only watched one episode, but it was the highest rated episode on IMDb. So I will be talking about that and then talking about some other things I learned while watching other people talk about the show. I watched season 1, episode 11, A Brief Reminiscence in Between Cataclysmic Events. And as the title suggests, yes, this is a flashback episode primarily. It talks about the beginning of Superman and the first time Clark put on the suit and used his powers in public for good, and him and Lois's relationship. And guess what? They do Superman and Lois meeting, Superman and Lois falling in love, him revealing his secret identity, him proposing, them getting married, them having kids, all within like 5 minutes. That's how fast they breeze through this, and I appreciate it so much because I had to sit through 2.5 hour long movies where Clark and Lois didn't even interact with each other for a majority of it. So I appreciate this show for getting right to the point. And I think that's what's so good about this show, is that everything about Superman in the past has been focused on Superman's past. We know his planet blew up. We know he falls in love with Lois. We know he reveals his secret identity. We know he has to find the Fortress of Solitude. We know all that stuff. So how about we focus on the future and what we don't know yet? And that's what this show is about. This show takes place once Superman and Lois are married and they have twin teenage boys. That's something we've never seen before because we're too busy backtracking everything we've already seen before, rebooting these movies. But now we're in new territory that we haven't seen before, which is awesome. Superman has a family now. He's a husband. He's a father. His kids have powers. He has to teach his kids how to use their powers for good. And now the TV show has a villain that's not Lex Luthor. A completely new villain that we haven't seen before. Apparently it is a villain from the comics, but they do tweak his origin story a little bit. So it's pretty new for the TV show and fits the plot pretty well. And I really enjoyed it from what I saw, and apparently other people really enjoy it from what they saw. I know what you're thinking right now. We found it. The good Superman show that isn't boring because it paints Superman in a light that we have never seen before on the screen. So why aren't people obsessing over it as much as Homelander? Well, let's talk about it. So is Superman boring? No, I don't think he is. It's just that some previous versions we've had of him don't really flesh out the character too much. But of course, with anyone with the right writing, they can be an interesting character. And as the MCU has showed us, even if it is a popular character that people have interest in, if you show it to us too many times over and over and over again, people are just naturally going to get bored and stop watching. The Boys Season 2 came out 2 years ago. And now that it's back with Season 3, that's a whole 2 years of waiting and building up hype for Homelander to return and us wanting to see what he's been up to. How are they going to continue Homelander's story? Because we had a break in between. Since there's always constant Superman media in our faces, of course we're going to get bored of him. Especially when all the Superman media were being shown is, oh, the death of Krypton, his dad is going to send him away, he's the last son, oh look, he crash lands on a farm, look at his farm parents raised him, oh, here's Lois, he falls in love with Lois, but he can't tell Lois that he's Superman. Oh wait, did I mention he has to find the Fortress of Solitude and throw a crystal in the water? Oh yeah, we need a villain, might as well make it Lex Luthor. Oh yeah, we need an expository scene where Lex Luthor discovers kryptonite. Oh yeah, Superman reveals himself to Lois. Oh yeah, there's a fight. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And that's why I think Smallville and Superman and Lois are the most critically successful out of all the things I've talked about in this video, because they find a way to change up Clark's story just a little bit, or a lot of it. And even if they show us a new Superman that's never been seen before, one that's actually dynamic and interesting, we're not going to really care because Superman's been around since the 40s. Life is just one big game of Love Island, and Homelander is just the new hot bombshell that walked into the villa. Homelander is just something new that we haven't seen before. Plus, to his advantage, he is a part of a TV show. with a huge ensemble. So he's not the main character that gets tons of screen time to where we can get sick of him. The Boys has Huey and Butcher and MM, Frenchie, Kamiko, Annie, Ashley, Maeve, A-Train, The Deep. I can go on and on about all these interesting characters that support Homelander and his story. Superman really only has Lois, and then Lex is there too. Superman basically has the burden of carrying his whole story by himself when Homelander is supported by all these interesting and dynamic characters around him. Now that Warner Brothers is like redoing their whole DC universe with this 10-year plan, I hope whatever Superman shows up next isn't boring. Because Superman is not inherently boring. You make him boring by giving him the same villains, by not challenging him morally, by only challenging him through his strength, which of course he can beat. I want this next Superman to be great. So, make his villain Minixkimikigi. What's his name? Mixie Make him that, Warner Brothers, please. That's the video. Thank you all for watching this long. If you're interested in superheroes, check out my video on why Hawkeye is the best thing to come out of Phase 4. And if you're not interested in superheroes, then I still have videos about not superheroes. And I'm going to create more videos in the future about superheroes and not about superheroes. So you're in luck no matter who you are. See you next time.